Hey everyone, as I promised that I will post a video for the midterm one review. Here is the review. Let me share my screen. Okay, so first of all, you need to know when you need to take the exam. This is the window. So October 7th midnight to October 8th midnight, like 2 days altogether. You need to finish the exam within this time period. So let me discuss about the exam study guide. What's that? Okay, to move it. So for the exam, make sure you read all of those 5 modules, module 1 to module 5 in the Canvas. If I go through the Canvas, starting from the introduction to programming, expression operator, conditionals, parameters, function, and input validation. Okay, what are the covered materials that you need to know? What are the basic things that you need to know? Well, before going to that, I would like to tell you it is recommended that you compile your personalized study guide by reviewing the project instruction, reading materials, completed the homework like uh, um, labs or project supporting labs in Canvas, and the project supporting materials. I need to modify this word to Canvas, not the Choreo. Okay, what are the required things that you need to know? First of all, the Python basics. You need to know what are the Python basics things. As you remember, I already have discussed the introduction to programming chapter, most of the history of computing, principle, hardware, and software. You don't need to read those things for the exam. What you need to know is starting from the variable, and make sure you understand how to print a line, what are the variable naming concern, what is a valid variable name, what is an invalid variable name, then basically the syntax and semantic things. Again, the syntax is the meaning of your code, and syntax is the grammatical things of your code, and semantic is the meaning of your code. Like if you write like the dog fly, I'm sorry, not the dog fly. It could be like the dog bark, then grammatically it is not correct. It could be like the dog barks, but it is it is correct, right? But if I'm telling like the dog flies, grammatically it is correct, but meaningful it is not. So there is a semantical error in this particular sentence, like the dog flies. But if I said like dog bark, then it is syntactical error, like grammatical error. You need to know those things. Like if you're missing any uh, grammatical things, for example, like colon, keyword, spacing, then that could be a syntactical error. If you miss, like for example, if you need to iterate at least 10 times, but if you're iterating 9 times, then it's a semantical error. If you'd like to find the odd numbers from a list, rather you're using a concept that can generate an even number, then semantical error. So keep in mind those two types of errors. Okay, you need to understand the concept that you already have used for the labs and projects. Those are really important. Expression, what is the expression? What is the statement? There are two distinguished things. I know you already have learned those two things. Some of the questions I may have asked, like whether it's a statement or expression. You need to know what's the difference between those two. Then the important thing is like operator. Uh, Typically, most of the questions are from arithmetic operator, but you need to know all of the operators. You may have some questions. So operators are like arithmetic operator, Boolean operator. Boolean operator has two types of things. Uh, and then in operator, membership operator. So you need to know those things. Then exception handling is really important. You need to know how you can handle the exception. If there are some errors, how you can handle the error. Typically the try and except. And there are various types of exception. I don't want you to read all of those types of exceptions, but at least you need to know some basic things. Then for the debugging, typically you will not find any question regarding the debugging, but yes, uh, uh, I may have asked how the code works. For example, I can give you a loop, and I may ask you like how many times this loop works. This is not exactly debugging. This is how the program works, like code snippet. But yeah, you need to know the concept of debugging to know those things. And again, those labs and project things are really important, what you already have used for those labs and projects. Strings is really important data structure that so far we have covered, because we haven't covered the list yet. Uh, uh, Not yet actually. You learn list next week, but this is not a part of our exam. So the string is really important. You need to know different types of built-in functions like len function. Len is not a string function. This is a built-in function of Python, the sorted function, but the string has its own method. For example, like um, string dot to lower, that means which will modify your string to the lower case, to upper to make it upper, those type of things. You need to know those methods. Also, you need to know how string slicing works, whether the, so whenever we're adding string slicing, use a colon operator. So first value is the starting point, second value is the ending point, but the ending point is not inclusive. It ends before the ending point. Like if you're adding 1 to 9, it will cover 1 to 8th character. And also there are some built-in function like len function to find the length of a string. Then function basics. So function is an important concept that you will use most of your programming like assignment throughout the semester. You need to know how the function works, what are the main things, the header and the body, what should be in the header, what are the keyword to write a function, what is the return type, and then on the next, not the next, the fifth module is the parameterized function, how you can use the parameter so that you can accept those values as an argument. Then input validation is a broader thing, but in your course or for this exam, I already have given some items in the input validation, how you can validate the input. This is also a part of like semantic error. And definitely, undoubtedly, the conditionals and loops are the very, very important concept in programming language. You need to know how conditional works like branching, if else. There are like variation of conditionals like if and multiple ifs, and then um, um, if elif type of thing. So there are some difference between multiple if versus if elif. Loops, there are basically two types of loops here in Python, for loop and while loop. You need to know which one to use when, and typically whenever you have a definite uh, uh, iteration, like how many times you need to iterate, then for loop is the better choice. And for the while loop, you don't know when it will end. Depending on the condition, it will exit. Then while loop is the better solution. So for the looping, make sure there's some loop iteration variable. You need to control the loop, otherwise it will go to an infinite loop. Then continue and break are the very important keyword in loops. continue actually skipping the current iteration. That means it will not execute the rest of the code for the current iteration. Just skip and then go to the next iteration. For the break, it just break from the loop regardless of anything. And what else? For the exception handling, there are like lot of error types, but I recommend you to know at least some types of error, like syntax error. I already mentioned here. Error handling, like value error, parse error, name error, type error, at least those 4 or 5 types of errors. I already have told you about those things, syntax and semantics things. For the expression, you need to know what is the compound expression is, statements for the operator, arithmetic, boolean, and order precedence, which is like a PEMDAS. For the string, you need to know how the if string works, how a commenting works. For the string, if you are multiplying the string with a number, whether it is valid or invalid. Built-in function like conversion. Conversion means like integer to float, float to integer, integer to character, something like that. Range function is really important, which is the built-in function that we are using for looping purposes. You need to know how a range function works, what are the parameters. Type function is also important, that's because we need to know what is the type before working with that particular variable. Some commonly used built-in libraries are like math, random, turtle, etc., like rand init, random. You already have used those functions. String operator, string concatenation, how you can concatenate a string, how you can printing a string, and some other string methods that already I have told. Error handling, at least you need to know those 4 types of error, but there are a lot of error types you already have used. Different types of errors like syntax, semantic, logic, type error, input errors, such and such. So logical error is like if that doesn't make any sense, or if makes sense means like if we are counting 10 numbers and rather you are counting 9 numbers, that means there is a logical error. Okay, variation I told about the conditionals, single branching, multiple branching, like if and else, and they're like multiple if. For the loop, for and while loop, and break and continue statement. Function component, the basic. So the important thing is like code snippet to evaluate. So I can give you some small code. You need to evaluate that code. Like maybe you need to find a value or find the iteration number at the end of the iteration, or I may ask you how many times this loop works. Okay. So if you open the quiz from here, then it asks you like this exam covers materials up to including loops, not loops actually, sorry. It should be up to the parameters. I will modify it. Use your textbook, any information you can find the official Python documentation here and the Wikipedia. You may not use a Python interpreter. You're not supposed to use it, though it is an online exam, but you're not supposed to use any interpreter. You have 2 hours to complete the exam. Submit the exam by marking is that complete. Once it is submitted, you will be unable to change answer to resubmit. There might be around 30 multiple choice question, and you have 2 days to finish the exam, which is like October 7th to October 8th. And it is not open book, no interpreter, no online searching. So I hope you will be honest for the exam. Other than that, you're good to go, and let me know if you have any question at any time. I'm happy to answer your questions. Okay, so good luck with your exam on next week. Hopefully this video helps you. Bye bye.